Hello and welcome to the FOMO Creator Show. I am your host, Making Sang, first name May King. And today we are going to be talking to the incredible Vardeep Edwards about all things branding. Let's bring Vardeep onto the show. How are you, my lovely?
Oh, very well, Making. Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show.
Oh, you are very welcome. Now, the first segment of the show is how we met. So, Vardeep, do you remember the first time that we met?
Yes, I do. Well, this was at in Unleash Your Inner Rebel event last year, hosted by Ep15, Patel, and you were doing the FOMO, obviously, and I was working on the branding and design assets. Although I think I'd been following you online for a little while, so it's not like you were a complete stranger, but yeah, it's the first time I'd kind of met you properly in person and had a chat and got to work alongside you as well.
The branding was just so dynamic at Unleash Your Inner Rebel. Was it a really enjoyable project to work on?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a bit of a background in event design. My last full-time job, which was quite a few years ago now, was for an events company. And I loved being able to see what that brand looked like when it came to life. And it kind of really sort of lends into the whole brand experience and what people expect from you as a brand and looking at all those touch points. So it goes kind of beyond the visuals. It's kind of how you're going to make those people feel on that day. And you've worked in a lot of events. It's you want to keep up that energy throughout the day. You want to make sure people are excited about coming to this event, that they will remember it, that they will talk about it, that they'll have a good positive experience. But it's also about instilling those values and what your brand is about as well, and making sure they're communicated and come across. So it was great. It was a great event to work on, and because of the nature of that event as well, there's quite a bit of creative scope as well. So that's always a bonus as well.
Absolutely love that. And we've got the wonderful Tim saying hello. He's always a great friend to the show. Hello, Tim. Lovely to see you. Now, the next segment of the show is to talk about the ABCs of FOMO. So, with all of my guests, I always like to encourage them to talk about the ABCs of FOMO, and we'll start off with A, which is authoritative. Authority. Now, you are a brand specialist, Vardeep. We've already talked about Unleash Your Inner Rebel, and in fact, you've got some of the assets here, haven't you? So, if you wanted to talk us through some of the things that we've got here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, working on a brand and these assets here, that's the end result and end deliverable. Working on a brand starts way before this sort of process. So it's got Unleash Your Inner Rebels, a couple of assets there. So we just spoke about that brand experience. So you can see in that bottom right photograph, there were images of these quotes that were dotted about the venue as well, and they were quotes taken from the actual speakers. The speakers have provided their quotes in terms of what it meant for them to be a rebel, and then they were kind of distilled, and we took out those key phrases and used that to kind of start bringing that experience together while people were in the room. And that was a great way. I think that was a great way to kind of start bringing some of those thoughts to life as well. So I think that's one of the things, I think, when you're at an event is to be inspired, to give you things to think about. So this was the social assets as well. They were there as well. So it's just trying to create all those touch points and where people might, come across the event and that brand on their journey to finding out about the event. And some of the other things I create quite a lot, I wanted to talk about, I've got brand guidelines there as well. So when you start working on a brand, it's quite a lot of strategy and writing, planning, thinking and defining before you even get to the visual identity or how you want to communicate that brand. But brand guidelines are my go-to thing that I will provide for my clients, because it keeps everybody on the same page. And it's really important for companies and employees to make sure that everyone understands what's at the core of that brand, what's important, who they're talking to, how they need to communicate. And the great thing about brand guidelines is it's a jumping off point. So it gives you the starting point for when you want to market your brand, when you want to communicate something, when you want to design a visual asset. So that's what these guidelines are about, is distilling what that brand is about. Therefore, everybody can work on keeping that consistency as well for that. And then some other assets, it's quite a lot of marketing materials, podcasts as well, but it's all about that consistency and making sure you've got a that level of sort of buyer experience as well for your brand at the different touch points in terms of where they might come across you, and they need to be relevant for that particular company and business as well. So for some, it is podcasts. For yourself, it's online and YouTube channels as well. For some, it is leaflets and flyers, and it's just looking at how best to communicate that brand for that particular output, and making sure everything's in line, and you're kind of building on what you want to people to know about your brand.
I absolutely love that. And in fact, you've given so many different examples there. Well, you demonstrated your authentic authority, because I think that, it's quite easy for people to think of a brand as just the logo, but it's not. It's more than that, and you've demonstrated that. Tim talked about, with branding at events, quotes are always a good thing to use. It's echoing your sentiments. And he also mentioned that what works for one brand might not work for another. So I think that's in relation to you talking about having that that brand guideline. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Because I think if you're distilling what's unique and the essence of what your brand is, then how you communicate that is going to be different for each one. Yeah, so you're absolutely right.
Lovely. So we're talking about the ABCs of FOMO. We've just covered authentic authority, and the next segment of the show is BTS. No, I don't mean the K-pop global sensation. I mean behind the scenes. So, Vardeep, we're just going to look a little bit into a day in the life of Vardeep Edwards as the branding fox. So, did you want to go through what we have here? A little insight into what you do as a brand specialist.
Yeah, I found this a bit tricky actually, because I don't have a lot of behind the scenes photos. And I wanted to try and show you different aspects of what I do rather than the end output. So I do run workshops sometimes with my clients, so you can see. So I've got the backs of my clients, running an in-person workshop, and sometimes it's floating ideas around, hence the post-it notes. It's quite good to get quick ideas out sometimes with clients and in workshops as well. It's quite a lot of writing, planning, so hence I do a lot of work on my laptop, and there's a lot of research. There's a lot of calls. I'm on video call like this a lot with my clients. I have weekly catch-ups when I'm working on their brand and their strategy, and going through that, because I can't they know their brand, or they know their business really better than I do. So it's having that regular contact to make sure that I really understand and help define their brand in the best way. So having that communication with my clients is really important to me. And then there's lots of notes. My office is full of books, notes, scribbles, notepads, sketch pads, and maybe that comes with being a visual and a sort of creative background as well. I like to write, so as much as I do a lot of research online and a lot of work on my computer, I find I have to write things down. I don't know if you're like this at all, making, but I feel like I have to write it to get it out of my head. It doesn't come out the same way. So yeah, there's a lot of notebooks and writing in the work that I do before I even start designing. So yeah, lots of paperwork.
Love that. And in fact, uh, Tim's just popped up. If you ever do interview BTS, then I might need to change that segment. I don't know if there is a chance of that, but we can hope one day. Um, so we're talking about the ABCs of FOMO. We've gone through authentic, authority, BTS, behind the scenes, and C is for create content for the lurkers. So, Vardeep, we know that on the socials, we've got lurkers, who are following us. They may not like our stuff, they may not share our stuff, they may not comment on our stuff, but they are there. And so it's really important for us to showcase that we are an expert in our field. So, Vardeep, how do you create content for the lurkers?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I only came across lurkers as a term, sort of, a while ago, maybe a few years ago, because it's hard, isn't it, sometimes when you're creating content and think nobody's looking at it. I don't know, is it doing anything? And I thought that was really interesting because I am definitely a lurker sometimes. So yeah, so suddenly it sort of clicked. But I think also just in terms of creating content, it's a really good practice and exercise, certainly for me on a personal level. I think it's a way to articulate what's in my mind and the thoughts and opinions that I have and the work that I do and what I want to do. So so this is a bit of a snapshot. I have written some blogs in the past, not as regularly, more recently. But I have started a podcast a couple of months ago. So that's for this year. So that's a monthly podcast. I also I'm part of this it's a YouTube channel video show that I do to other brand strategies called In Demand Brand. And then I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. So that's some of the screenshots that you can see there. And I try to keep some of my visuals. So one of those visuals is my client work, but I try to keep my visuals on brand. I think that's kind of expected for me. Otherwise, I think I'd be a bit disappointed in myself.
Tell us a bit more about what people can expect from your podcast.
Yeah, so the Courageous Collective, I run that with Rupa, and we want to shine a bit of a light on some of the other women like ourselves from creative backgrounds and are perhaps from sort of more underrepresented communities. We've got a bit of a similar brand story. So when we were kind of growing up and studying at college, we couldn't really see many role models who looked like us or were in our sort of career industries that we wanted to go to. And, we know they're out there. And I still find it hard sometimes to find those people. And I think, from a personal level, I'd like to be able to bring some of these women and people out from those type of industries and cultures and backgrounds and just showcase the diversity. There's a lot of people out there who aren't as visible. Perhaps they need your FOMO, but it's just trying to shine a light on the range of people that are within our industries doing amazing things that may not have heard about. So.
Oh, amazing! That sounds fantastic. And where can people find the podcast? Is it where you generally download your own podcast, or is on a specific
Yes.
area?
So we're the Courageous Collective. You can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcast as well. So, yeah.
Oh, amazing. Oh, that's great. Sounds fascinating. Anything to do with promoting diversity and shining a light on voices that might not have been heard
Yeah.
is so important. So I'm really chuffed of that. So well done. That's fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Um, oh, you're very welcome. So we talked about the ABCs of branding, and I think the next segment can be best described with this little video. back
Love it.
to the FOMO. That's a lovely little video that's done by the fabulous Mark Orr from Pocket Video School. Mark is the chap who pushes all my buttons on the FOMO Creator Show. Look, no hands. He does all the bringing up of the slides and all the stuff, and he did that video too. Now, Vardeep, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you about all things branding. You've talked about, the different ways in which you've helped your clients. So with this section, we want to generate a bit of buzz and excitement, and let people know what kind of clients that you've worked with in the past to generate that buzz and excitement, and hope that people will get in contact with you once they know that you are the person that they need as part of their team. So if you wanted to walk through some of the clients that you've worked with.
Yeah, so you can see Unleash Your Inner Rebel. That's run by Advita Patel. So I've worked on her branding for two years in a row for her events now as well. Quite a lot of my clients are women in business. I think there's a connection there with who I am and my background and story as well. So, but in terms of industries, and businesses, it's quite a range. There's a genealogists, there's sort of not-for-profits, there are marketing managers, there's personal fitness, instructors, personal stylist, and there's a psychology agency as well. So yeah, quite a real range. But I do tend to find that they're predominantly women running their own businesses, and they've got some big, bold plans, which I love. I love to see ambitious women, kind of going for it and trying to do some amazing things with their work.
So can you give us a couple of examples? I mean, we've talked about Unleash quite a bit with what you've, did for that event. You brought the assets alive. You put quotes out that were, and brought their values into the event itself. But with some of the clients that you've talked about here, are there any others that you that was a slightly different project, but it still involved, obviously branding, and talk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my recent clients that's on this board is from Mix Fresh Marketing. She is a marketing manager who targets nutrition and fitness brands. She's at the moment it's just her, so it's a very small team, but looking to sort of expand. And she was at a point where her branding wasn't working for her because she had set it up kind of sort of DIY, which is absolutely fine. But it got to a point where she was starting to get a little bit clearer on where she wanted to take her business and where she started it. Her brand and visual identity and the name as well wasn't really reflecting that. So yes, I worked with her on her strategy, her naming, her logo, visual identity, and then some assets as well. And that's quite a normal approach that I will have with my clients. I quite enjoy doing the whole sort of rebranding and just reworking and relooking at everything. So yeah, we'll look at everything from the whole picture and start right at the beginning, basically, and sort of plug those gaps and really work at sort of clarifying and defining that brand and take it on that journey to where it needs to be.
Is it you talked about it's women predominantly that you work with, and we've just talked about an event-based branding project, and then we've just talked about a rebranding. Is there another example that you can talk about which may have been on that list that we've just looked at?
Yeah, so I've worked with a few not-for-profits as well. So one of the ones on that list was the Genealogy Society, and they're more of an association rather than your traditional business or an event. So that was quite a different project with lots of trustees involved. There's more of a board, there's more of a process and stages to go through. So there's a lot more of trying to get people on board with your journey. So it's a very different story working with one business owner to sort of working with where there isn't one business owner, but there might be a board of 15 or 20 people who've all got a say. So yeah, that's quite a different it's quite a different experience, and it can take a little while to try and to get everybody on the same path and kind of be aligned.
Were there several iterations of that branding, given that you had to try and satisfy, 15 people on that particular project?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so things take a bit longer because there's more of a longer, lengthier decision process involved, and it kind of goes through a few different stages because I'll normally work with a core team of normally 2 or 3 people, and then it's communicated to the wider team and then fed back, and there's a lot of audience research involved as well to make sure it's on track with where they want to be. So it's more that it takes longer, really, to kind of get to where you want to be. But it's really important to take everybody's opinions on board and kind of try and match it with where they want to take their brand as well. So yeah, it's things just take a little bit longer generally.
So, I'm probably making an assumption here, but I kind of got the impression with, a lot of the women that you've worked with, they seem to have had an idea that they needed to come to you with branding. Have you
Mhm.
ever come across a situation where people knew that they had to do something, but they weren't really sure, and it just started with a conversation, and then
Mhm.
you started working with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had quite a few that I like that because I think that's the thing. When you're running your own business, sometimes you don't know exactly what you need help with, and you don't know if that thing or that person is actually going to solve that problem. Sometimes it can be very clear in that, oh, I know I need a new logo, or I know I need new visual identity, or I know I've got, or some people have got understanding of what that means, their problem means in terms of branding, but quite often it's a bit fuzzy. So yeah, so I've had conversations on social with some past clients, and they've kind of said loosely, I think I need help with this. I don't know exactly. I don't know if that's what you do. And yeah, the best thing in that case is to sort of jump on a call because you don't know if you can help that person until you have a proper conversation. So yeah, absolutely.
So, if people, at what stage do you think people need to get in touch with you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, actually. Yeah, no, it's because I don't think there's any one answer. I don't think there's any one right answer. You can work with branding right at the beginning to companies and businesses have been around for years. It's something that's always needed. And I think there's more of a need for branding, especially our consultants or even managers, to be more involved in the sort of regular running of businesses as well. So, but I think it's different at different stages. There's different things that are needed. So, right at the early stages of startup, you kind of almost like a minimum brand to kind of get going. Quite a lot of my clients that I work with might have been in their business for a few years, so therefore they're looking to refine it and redefine it a bit and develop it and be clear on some of that as well. But in some cases as well, I've got a current client that's been around for 50 years, and we're doing a complete rebrand because it's outdated. It's not talking to their now audience. So it's their audience is different from where they started 50 years ago to where they are now and where they want to go. So yeah, I'm sorry, I probably haven't answered your question, but I don't, I don't know that there's only one way.
No, you have. No, you've answered it perfectly, and I bet you're looking forward to the rebrand of the company of 50 years. I mean,
Yeah,
that must be so exciting.
yeah, it's a really sort of quite good, meaty, challenging project to get your teeth into,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, and it's trying to sort of think and reimagine what that could be for the next perhaps 50 years. Who knows? Yeah, so
yeah.
yeah, it's interesting.
Fantastic. That is amazing. Um, well, thank you so much for your time, Vardeep. It's been absolutely incredible talking to you. And hopefully, our watchers and listeners gain a better insight into the importance of branding. Um, so it leads us to the final section of the show, which is FOMO promo. So, Vardeep, if people wanted to get in touch with you, is there anything that you've got going on at the moment that you want to shine a light on?
Yeah, so I am, well, I'm the branding fox everywhere. I do have a brand audit that people can download and have a look at and assess their own brands, which is available from my homepage. I obviously do have the podcast and in-demand brand, which is on YouTube as well. But yeah, no, I'm really open to just making connections and having conversations as well. So yeah, please get in touch if you've got any questions or you just want to have a chat. But yeah, thank you so much, Making, for having me.
No, you're very, very welcome. I mean, are there any final words that you want to say before we end this broadcast?
No, I just love your show. So yeah, I'm really excited to see how it pans out for you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It's been amazing talking to you. Do go and check out Vardeep on her website, and do download her audit as well. We could all do with a little bit of help just to see if our, if our brand is talking to the right clients. So I think that's everything to with the FOMO Creator Show. I just want to thank Vardeep Edwards for talking about all things branding. And this has been the FOMO Creator Show. I am your host, Making Sang, first name May King, and it just leaves us time to hit the credits, Mark.